Good morning. Welcome to the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalist. I'm Alexa Adamo Valverde, member of the Worship Associates Ministry here at the church. Our Reverend Minister is Thom Belote, is preaching this morning. We want to welcome any visitors or newcomers to our church and call your attention to the back of the order of service. For your special note, welcome guests and newcomers. After service, please join us for our in-person Sunday social. We also welcome those of you attending online. Lyrics to hymns and all elements of service may be found on the live stream screen, and a complete order of service, including weekly announcements, is available via the link in the Sunday morning email and on the church website. And if you could, please turn off or silence any cell phones during our service to maintain a worshipful experience. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. And now we will hear from Gerald Bonner regarding our blood drive.
Good morning, everybody. Great to see you all here today. So I just want to give a final report about the day of service blood drive that we had in end of March. We collected 28 pints of blood, which will go to help serve 100 people in needs of blood. So that was a great success, and that was our third day of service blood drive. We also have our 2 fall blood drives a year. So if you can want to participate in that fun, and you're not able to donate, you can always be a volunteer for those activities. So We thank you for all that blood, for saving those lives. I'd also like to remind you that at the second service, Sunday Social, we'll be giving out the prizes for those that did donate on the 30th. Thank you.
So please rise in body or in spirit for opening hymn number 1007, There's a River Flowing in My Soul, in the blue hymnal.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul. And it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart. And it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind. And it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing, my river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul.
In the words of our opening hymn, there is a river flowing in my soul, telling me I'm somebody. In the words of poet William Stafford, there's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. In the mind of psychologist Carl Jung, there was an imagined collective unconscious, a shared set of stories and feelings and meanings linking all of humankind together. A river, a thread, a cosmic mind, a great mystery, connecting us all. A vision of a connected humanity, a connected cosmos, a connected existence. This morning, we take up our theme of connection one more time. This morning, we consider our connection to everything, to everyone, and everywhere through all time. In that spirit, let us worship together. For our chalice lighting, please join me in reading these words. There is a mystery, as I may, I cannot come to the end of it. It teaches me reverence for the unfathomable wonder at my core. Hidden one, you alone know the secret, within me, for are you not that secret?
Everybody is wondering what and where they all came from. Everybody's worried about where they're gonna go when the whole thing's done. No one knows for certain and it's all the same to me. Think I'll just let the mystery be. Some say once you're gone forever. Some say you're gonna come back. Some say you'll rest in the arms of the Savior if sinful things you lack. Some say they're coming back in the garden, bunch of carrots and little sweet peas. I believe I'll let the mystery be. Everybody is wondering what and where they all came from. Everybody's worrying about where they're gonna go when the whole thing's done. No one knows for certain, and it's all the same to me. So I'll just let the mystery be. Some say they're going to a place called glory. Ain't saying that ain't a fact. So I've heard I'm on the road to purgatory. I don't like the sound of that. I believe in love. I've lived my life accordingly. And I choose to let the mystery be. Everybody is wondering what and where they all came from. Everybody's worrying about where they're gonna go when the whole thing's done. No one knows for certain, so for me, think I'll just let the mystery be. Think I'll just let the mystery be.
Thank you so much, Eric, and thank you, Kristen. This weekend we have a bunch of people, several dozen in our church, who are out at a retreat at the mountain in Western North Carolina, and Glenn Meerbach, our music director, and a lot of members of the choir are over in Durham at a choir festival, and I feel really, really bad for all of them because they're missing out on this here. Don't tell them I said that, but they'll see it on the recording probably. Each week, but I should say thank you for being here. Each week we hold in our service a time for sharing the joys and the sorrows that we bring with us into this beloved community. It's during this time, if you've come with either a personal joy or sorrow to share, you're invited to come down either of the sides. Take turns, place a stone in the water bowl, and briefly share your joy or your sorrow. Let us enter into this time of tenderness and trust. Are there any joys and sorrows this morning?
I'm Judy Lechner, and I just want to say my joy at the bird walk that took place yesterday. And at 8 a.m., we all met, and I really want to thank Peggy Dorfman and Steve Chandler for taking the time not only to explore the place ahead of time to make sure they know which birds are there, but to give us such an expert and wonderful walk. And none of us, I didn't know that we're walking too fast for bird watching normally. But that was one of the many, many things I learned yesterday.
Hello, my name is Morgan, and on Thursday we got bees for our farm.
Hey there, I'm Carla Dirks, and I'm here with I think it's mostly a sorrow, but my father transitioned last Monday after 91 years, and he truly enjoyed coming here when he could. And it's also a joy because he had a lot of suffering leading up, a whole lot. So he's free now, and we're carrying on with reverence.
Hi, my name's Bronwyn Blass. This is a stone for our dog Buddy. We adopted him last year. He developed luxating patella, which means his knee won't stay in socket, so he had to have surgery on Friday. And so this is a stone for him because he has to stay kind of still and contained for 6 to 8 weeks, and that's hard for a puppy and hard for his owners. So think of us all.
The stone is a joy and a thanks to this church and the programming. I'm really thankful that I can have a conversation, a really open-hearted conversation with my 8th grade son about sexual health and sexual identity. And there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of, not confusions. There's a lot of, unknowns that's going on. But what I do know is that he has an understanding of what consent is. He has a real, true understanding of how to be a good human. And I give a lot of credit to our programming here. So.
Hello, I'm Rosemary Dean, and I have a couple of joys, and yes, I second the amazing youth programming here. And we had a blast last weekend at our first family sleepover. My girls and I slept right back there. Actually got more sleep than expected, met some new families. And my other joy is my brother-in-law just directed a play at High Point University that I think was a beautiful, I think there's an important message for society, for our community about our youth and how they're exploring identity and themselves and the love and respect that they need from all of us during that time.
I too want to add a stone of thanks. Yesterday, our community gathered to hold a memorial service for Barbara Dennis, and I'm really grateful for the members of the caring ministry and other volunteers in the church who helped to put on a little reception afterwards and to greet and to hold space. And I also am placing this stone for Ida Hyde, who's a member of our flower committee, who created this wonderful bouquet for the flowers for Barbara's service, and we get to enjoy it this morning. So thank you to that. It really is a beautiful flower arrangement. A final stone for all the joys and sorrows that we hold in our hearts that were not spoken this morning. I ask that you join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, God of so many names and beyond all naming, we gather this morning bringing with us the joys and the sorrows, the gratitude and the struggle of our lives. We come this morning with gratitude for this community, for one another, for art and creativity and song and learning. We come as well bringing the struggles, the challenges, the grief and the loss. We remember with deep love and affection those we love who are with us no longer. We hold in our hearts the care that we have for one another and for this world, which is so often racked with strife and pain and suffering. We ask this morning for the wisdom to be able to hold the connections in our lives, our relationships, our communities, our world, and to hold our deeper connections as well with the earth. In a moment, we will hold a time of silence, and as we do so, I invite you to connect in your heart to your own deepest prayers and longings. Let us hold together a time of silence. Amen. Blessed be. Our next hymn this morning is number 16 in your hymnal. It's called The Lone Wild Bird. No, 15. 15. I always get 16 is 'Tis a Gift to Be Simple, and 15 is Lone Wild Bird, and I always get them transposed. We're not going to sing 'Tis a Gift. Sorry. Silly hour has started. It's where the first service was very still and solemn. Let us rise in body or in spirit, and we're going to sing hymn number 15.
The lone wild bird in lofty flight is still with thee, nor leaves thy sight. And I am thine, I rest in thee. Great Spirit, come and rest in me. The ends of earth are in thy hand, the seas dark, deep, and far off land. And I am thine, I rest in thee. Great Spirit, come and rest in me.
This morning's reading is by Nancy Schaefer, and it's called That Which Holds All. Because she wanted everyone to feel included in her prayers, she said right at the beginning, several names for holy. Spirit. She said, Holy One. She said, mystery and God. But then, thinking these weren't enough ways of addressing that which cannot fully be addressed, she added particularities, saying, Spirit of life, Spirit of love, ancient Holy One, mystery we will not ever fully know, gracious God, and also Spirit of this earth, God of Sarah, Gaia, thou. And then, tongue loosened, she fell to naming superlatives as well. Most creative one, greatest source, closest hope. Even though superlatives for the sacred seemed to her probably redundant, but then she couldn't stop. One who made the stars, she said, although she knew technically a number of those present didn't believe the stars had been made by anyone or thing, but just luckily happened. One who is an entire ocean of compassion, she said. And no one laughed. That which has been present since before the beginning, she said, and the room was silent. Then, although she hadn't imagined it in this way, others began to offer names. Peace, said one. One my mother knew, said another. Ancestor, said a third. Wind, rain, breath, said one near the back. Refuge, that which holds all. A child said, water. Someone said, Kuan Yin, and then womb, witness, great kindness, great eagle, eternal stillness. And then there wasn't any need to say the things she thought would be important to say. And everyone sat, hushed, until someone said, Amen.
And now it is time for our offertory. Freely have we received gifts that minister to our needs of body and spirit. Gladly we bring to our church and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. If you wish to donate online, please point your camera at the QR code on the back of the order of service and tap the banner that appears. And there is also information on our church's website. We will now receive the morning offering.
Did you know these were Roger Ebert's dying words? Did you know these were Roger Ebert's dying words? It's all an elaborate hoax. It's all an elaborate hoax. He looked ever peaceful and he looked ever young, accepting his moment that soon would be done. And he wrote in a note that he passed to his wife as he felt himself shedding the skin of his life. It said, "There is a vastness that can't be contained or described as a thought in the flesh of our brain. It's everything, everywhere, future and past, dissolving together in an eternal flash." With no words to say that he loved her so much, his hand seemed to pass through whatever it touched. And the credits that rolled listed all of God's names, and images floated away from their frames. From their frames. Did you know these were Roger Ebert's dying words? Did you know these were Roger Ebert's dying words? It's all an elaborate hoax. It's all an elaborate hoax.
So I'm going to say more about this in a minute, but Eric, you've made my day twice today. So, like, some people make my day once in a day, but you've somehow made my day twice today. So I want to tell you about the song that Eric just played for us. 10 days ago, I went to a backyard concert in the backyard of a new family in our church. And the performer at this concert was Eve Barzilay, who performs under the name Clem Snide. And he ended his set that evening by playing the song that Eric just played. And I was struck by it, and I had this dream of bringing it to church. And I had the dream of bringing it to church 6 months from now. And then I looked at what I was scheduled to preach, and miracles happened, and strings got pulled, and thank you. The name of the song is Roger Ebert. Yes, the famous American film critic. Roger Ebert died in 2013 following an excruciating battle with cancer that left him for the last several years of his life unable to speak or eat, and forced him to communicate through writing. And the song is kind of a riff on the final message that Roger Ebert ever wrote, which was, "This is all an elaborate hoax." Roger Ebert's wife, Chaz, described it this way: "The one thing people might be surprised about is that Roger said he didn't know if he could believe in God. He had his doubts. But toward the end, something really interesting happened. That week before Roger passed away, I would see him, and he would talk about having visited this other place. I thought he was hallucinating. I thought they were giving him too much medication. But the day before he passed away, he wrote me a note saying, 'This is all an elaborate hoax.' I asked him, 'What's a hoax?' And he was talking about this world, this place. He said it was all an illusion. I thought he was just confused, but he was not confused. He wasn't visiting heaven, not the way we think of heaven. He described it as a vastness that you can't even imagine, a place where the past, present, and future were happening all at once." And Clem Snide, as we just heard, rendered this story lyrically this way: "There's a vastness that can't be contained or described as a thought in the flesh of our brain. It's everything, everywhere, future and past, dissolving forever in an eternal flash. And besides being like a really cool and catchy and quirky song, all of which are true, I perked up immediately upon hearing this song because what Yves Barzilay is describing and what Roger Ebert describing is actually a textbook example of a mystical experience. A textbook example of a mystical experience. When he says it's all an elaborate hoax, that isn't a cynical statement. Because what Roger Ebert was describing is a vision of a world beyond the ego, beyond the individualized, atomized self, a world in which everything is connected. The hoax is that we're all separate from each other. And the literature on these sorts of profound mystical experiences reveals that countless other mystical experiences sound eerily similar to what Roger Ebert just described. The ego dissolves and a person experiences an overwhelming sense of connection to everything and everywhere and all time all at once. My favorite writer on religion is Jeffrey Kripal of Rice University. And he proposes his theory, his way of seeking, is he proposes that we think of the human as two. The human is two. There is a part of us, one of us, that is us. Like our name, our experiences, our senses, our kind of everything that is the story of our lives. We are located in a distinct individual body, separate from everything else. We're bound by language and culture. We're defined by time, utterly distinct from all else. And then Kripal suggests there's also a part of the human that is beyond, unlimited, eternal, utterly connected, or something like that. The human as two. To gloss spiritual teacher Ram Dass, who said, "The only two things you need to remember are your divine nature and your social security number." The only two things you need to remember are your divine nature and your social security number, which is like the human is too, right? There's this us that is like there, right? The records of our, bank statements and paperwork and everything else. And then there is this universally connected being. My sermon this morning is called Connecting with the Divine. And I think this is going to be the final sermon I give in what has been a year spent considering our connections. The series started last August when I introduced the theme of connections and mentioned a report that had just then come out by the Surgeon General of the United States on the epidemic of loneliness, the epidemic of isolation and disconnection. And over this year, we've considered connection and disconnection in our relationships. We've considered ways that we can be most connected to our true selves and ways that we disconnect from the self. We've looked at social media and screens as, on one hand, bringers of connection, and then on the other hand, as agents of disconnection. We've looked at connection and disconnection through theories of the racialized self. We've looked at ways to connect within this church and the ways in which our church is connected to the larger community. We've emphasized our connections within the church, and we've explored our connections to spiritual practices in a wonderful series that has been led through Spiritual Exploration for Adults this spring. My hope through all of this, if you didn't lose the string or didn't lose the thread somewhere along the way, is that maybe this year, maybe you've been more mindful and attentive to your connections, your relationships, your involvements, your habits, those places and people and practices and principles to which you feel a connection in your life. My hope is that this theme may have inspired you to deepen your connections in some way over the last year, or maybe to help someone you know to become more connected through your invitation. Which brings us to this morning, the end of the series, Connecting to the Divine. I want to say from the beginning here, we're not at the beginning, it's always when the minister says, well, and to begin, I'm like, 6 minutes in, and to continue. Please don't get hung up on vocabulary. I could have said sacred or holy or God instead of divine. In the reading before the sermon, which Jen led, the leader in that poem gives us a number of options, including that which holds all. So don't get hung up on the language. And if you really stumble on the vocabulary, you might take it as some consolation that Roger Ebert did as well. Roger Ebert had been raised Catholic, but had decided that he couldn't or didn't really believe in God. Ebert, though, believed in humanism, in science, in kindness, and in the Democratic Party. These are his beliefs. And then something happened. This is all an elaborate hoax, he wrote. I want to talk about connections, whether they're connections with each other or connections with the divine. The thing about connections is that sometimes we feel connected and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we feel connected and sometimes we don't. I want to tell a story or mention something that's both I find incredibly sad, but also meaningful and true, which is a story about Mother Teresa. And I'm going to ask you if anybody's heard this, don't give it away. So after Mother Teresa died, the folks in the inner circle of the Vatican started to gather up all of her writings, all of her letters, all of her journals. They went out and documented conversations that she had had with people around the world in order to prepare the documentation in order to elevate her to sainthood eventually. And when they put all of these together, something they found was troublesome, which is that all through her life, Mother Teresa almost never felt a connection with God. How many people knew that? How many people find that really surprising or interesting, right? All through her life, excepting one period of about 10 days in 1958, Mother Teresa felt no connection with God, and not for a lack of effort. And not for a lack of effort. I want to love God, Mother Teresa wrote, and yet there is that separation, that terrible emptiness, that feeling of the absence of God. And that's how she lived for pretty much the duration of her entire life. Incredibly, heartbreaking, harrowing stuff. Mother Teresa's writings read almost like a case study in depression, only on the existential level. And I'll just say that while my heart breaks, right? If I'm being completely honest, part of that fills me with just a tiny bit of relief, which is that when I too feel a sense of disconnection, I think this is how Mother Teresa felt. I'm in good company. The world-famous psychiatrist and psychoanalyst Carl Jung was deeply interested in our spiritual connections and how it is that we form a connection with ourself and beyond to others. Above the door to his office, Carl Jung carved a Latin phrase, vocatus atque non vocatus Deus aderit. Bidden or unbidden, called or uncalled, God is present. Called or uncalled, God is present. Jung's ideas and interests included thinking about a collective unconscious, linking all of humankind. Jung was also interested in what he called synchronicities, which is where external realities and internal states somehow interact with each other. So how is it that we may feel or develop a sense of connectedness with that vastness that can't be contained? How do we experience a connection with the divine? Well, you could attempt to have a near-death experience, although I strongly do not advise it. It seems that spiritual practices are one thing that actually can help us to experience this sense of connection. My friend Carl, not Carl Jung, is deeply practiced in meditation, and he has experienced through a long practice of meditation this connection with the vastness of the divine. I have another friend who keeps asking me to try ecstatic dance, and one day I may do that. And Eric, who's gone, Eric was back there for the first service, but Eric told me that his experience of singing in groups often fills him with that sense of connection. I'm also interested in what the field of psychedelics is saying right now about connection and disconnection. Increasingly, there is a lot of medical research about using psychedelics as a treatment for things like fear of death, overwhelming loss, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. That to those extent that those things that afflict us are causing us a disconnection, whether disconnection from other people or disconnection from ourselves. Doctors are more and more experimenting with psychedelics as a treatment. In fact, our UU seminary in California recently hosted a series on the sacred and the substance. That was the name of the series. And many report experiencing a sense of the connection with the divine in nature, right? That's a place where a lot of us go to feel that sense of connection. One of my favorite narratives comes from none other than Ralph Waldo Emerson, our own Saint Ralph, who wrote, get this, here, this is his mystical experience. He wrote, "Crossing a bare common in snow puddles at twilight under a clouded sky, without having in my thoughts any occurrence of special good fortune, I have enjoyed a perfect exhilaration. Standing on the bare ground, my head bathed in the blithe air and uplifted into infinite space, all mean egotism vanishes. I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing, I see all. The currents of the universal being circulate through me. I am part or particle of God." I think St. Ralph knew it was all an elaborate hoax. And my favorite professor of religion, who I mentioned earlier, Jeff Kripal, had a similar experience of mystical union. His happened to him in India while he was researching the goddess Kali. Jeff now lives in Houston, and he's a professor at Rice University, and some years ago he sent me copies of a series of sermons he gave at one of the Unitarian Universalist churches in Houston, which is named Emerson Unitarian, by the way. See, all these things are all connected somehow. And in this sermon that he gave on this stuff, he advised that we can invite these experiences of connection by looking for them and being open to them, by cultivating a feeling of openness. So while I don't recommend near-death experiences, I hopefully have laid out a few ways in which one can be open to that experience of connection to the divine. And so as I bring this sermon and this series to an end, I invite us to hold our longing for connection, our desire for connection, to hold the connections that we hope to explore, cultivate, deepen, perhaps the practices we want to invite. And I give thanks for the connections that we share, the connections that we create in this community, and it is a joy to be connected to each of you. We're going to end this morning with a hymn about feeling connected to nature. It's called "I Brought My Spirit to the Sea." It's number 4 in your gray hymnal, and I'm going to invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we join in singing.
I brought my spirit to the sea. I stood upon the shore. I gazed upon infinity. I heard the waters roar. And then there came a sense of peace. Some whisper calmed my soul. Some ancient ministry of stars had made my spirit whole. I brought my spirit to the trees that loomed against the sky. I touched each wandering careless breeze to know if God was nigh. And then I felt inner flame that fiercely burned my tears. Upright I rose from bended knee to meet the asking years.
Please remain standing in body or spirit. The words for extinguishing the chalice are in your order of service. Please join me if you wish to do so. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Join me in thanking all who contributed to making the service worshipful this morning. And please join us in singing Shalom. The words are in your order of service. As you're comfortable, please hold hands with those next to you or cross your arms over your heart.
Thank you.